Hello everyone. Is this good? Can you all hear me? Thumbs ups. Excellent. Okay, great. That was a long list. Wow, that made me sound more tired than I feel. Anyway, hello everyone. I am Amy. Today I'm going to be very briefly speaking about not E-sports, not E-S sports, and definitely not e-gaming. I'm going to be speaking about esports. So the Associated Press actually did make a decision on this in 2017. So if you were here to find out solely how to spell this word, good news for you is you can spend the next 15 minutes just scrolling Twitter on your phone, because that's the answer. So who am I and why am I here? So my name is Amy Potter, and I am the project lead for New Zealand-based esports media company Let's Play Live, otherwise known as LPL. So LPL has been around since 2015, and I've worked with them on and off again since then, basically. And in late 2017, they received investment from SkyCity Entertainment Group. This meant that they brought on full-time staff. I was one of those staff in January 2018. So I was first the social media manager for the company, and my role kind of changed and merged and grew with the company because they're a pretty small team. And I'm now sort of more in a project management role. So I'm also on-camera talent. I host a bunch of things. As was mentioned, I'm a streamer, so I tend to get put into those types of roles as well. So I don't have a whole lot of time to speak today, so I've been taking things in and putting things out of this talk a lot, but I kind of want to encourage you. I've put my little handle for Twitter at the bottom of the screen there. If you have any questions, or if I don't cover something enough, or if you want to know something more, just tweet me and I'll try and answer it. So I don't want to spend too long on this because hopefully most people in the room are at least familiar with the term esports. That's kind of where I've gone with this. There's a very varying breadth of knowledge out there. So Oxford Dictionary's definition I don't love too much, so I'll focus on Wikipedia's, which is a form of competition using video games, most commonly taking the form of organised multiplayer video game competitions, excuse me, particularly between professional players and teams. Sorry, my voice is going to give out on me at some point. So, the words which stand out to me in both those definitions are competitive and professional. So games played against others and usually for money. So, the things everyone always wants to talk about. How big is this industry? And the numbers are pretty big. So this is global stats. We had 700 plus recorded esports events in 2018. These numbers are all via Newzoo, by the way. So the global esports audience is growing, about 16% year on year since 2017. And in this year, the esports economy is predicted to grow to 905 million, which is pretty massive with a 38% growth. And on its current trajectory, experts estimate that the esports industry will reach $1.4 billion next year. So those are pretty wild out there numbers. But when you look at this, it kind of makes sense. So professional prize pools in 2018 grew, as they have done year on year for quite a while now, with the main difference being the injection of battle royales. I think we're all familiar with Fortnite. So that said, major tournaments awarded about $130 million worth of prize money, that's US dollars, in 2018, and these were the top 5 games. So this is what the top 5 landscape looks like for us at LPL. So this is across Australia and New Zealand, where we run online tournaments and LAN events. I haven't put our prize pools here because the last slide's a little bit hard to follow, so just let me tell you they're a little bit less. But I am a big believer that the industry isn't and it shouldn't be limited to those top titles. So we're very much a growing industry, and this was some of my favourite new esports content that has emerged over the last sort of 6 months. Farming Simulator with their €250,000 prize pool, it's a big one, and Twitch Rivals also did a take on Stardew Valley esports. So these are quite unusual titles that have caused a lot of discussion and conflicts among kind of esports traditionalists, which yes is a thing that exists sadly. So I think that this is the type of thing that we really want to see in esports, you know, challenging those norms and challenging traditions. So it's really important to understand the esports industry, and it does differ from the games industry. Yes, they are very much linked, but they're also quite wildly different. So I wish I had time to go in depth on all of these things and kind of help you understand them all, but I'm pretty pressed for time. So just know that like games, there's probably a lot more to the esports industry than you think. And the 2 biggest types of esports companies out there are player and team-based organisations, and then there's also your broadcasting and media organisations. So these can't exist without each other. They do work together, but they are very different. And this is kind of what I deal with in an ecosystem-wise day to day. So How does this all work fundamentally, and especially here in New Zealand? So there are quite a few community-level gaming and esports groups in New Zealand, and there have been for quite a few years now, and we define them as local-level organisations. They're volunteer-run, mostly funded by members. Sometimes there's some sponsorship involved. But there are also quite a few professional esports organisations. Sorry. A couple in terms of esports, media and broadcasting. And then there's also professional team-based organisations. So a few of you may know that the New Zealand Breakers, the basketball team, expanded into esports in late 2018 with their breakaway esports team. So LPL sits over there in that right-hand category. And the esports scene continues to grow from strength to strength, and these definitions are changing all the time. So I'm by no means an expert on this, and this is just my perspective and how I see it at this current state in time. So tournament organisation. How does tournament organisation work? There are literally 1,001 ways that a tournament can be run. I would probably need a whole other time slot just to talk about that. So there's even quite a few ways that professional level tournaments are run. So I'm going to go through a couple of those to kind of help you understand the landscape. So the first example is the Overwatch League by Activision. This is the first professional esports global league with a city-based team system. So this whole league was implemented in a very traditional sport-like league manner where teams were bought and sold, and that's the majority of the way that they make money. And then we have other publishers who run their own tournaments and events very independently. So, for example, with what Epic's doing with Fortnite, tournaments are usually run without front-facing esports-specific sponsors or investors. This type of situation is very unique and dependent to the game itself. Fortnite doesn't necessarily use really any traditional sport-like structures. They're very much focused on the wider gaming community. They like to bring in streamers and influencers. Their tournaments are more like marketing endeavours than they are esports. And then thirdly, I've used the LPL logo. Could be any tournament organiser really. But the most long-standing way of running esports events have been to have third-party organisers and communities who have no real affiliation to the game publisher per se, but they acquire license rights, they acquire publishing and broadcasting rights, and then sponsorship is sold. So the media company, controls everything about that event. So everyone's been watching to see for a while now kind of what the norm is going to become for esports, you know, where this is going to fall and which is going to be what rises to the top. But really, while you can understand publishers hold a lot of the power here in whatever endeavour you're undertaking, I think if you ask me, there's kind of room for all these different types of tournaments out there. You know, these can all exist in one ecosystem, and I think publishers have often varying appetites for esports, so I don't see why these can't coexist. So, aware that a large portion of attendees today are game developers, I wanted to address some things that those keen to delve more into the esports side of things could keep in mind, perhaps. One approach that we'll go into again with the Overwatch League, they just do a lot of things right, okay, is that you can think about esports kind of pre-launching your game. So this was the approach they took. It means thinking about things like how competitive aspects of your game might work, how will your game stay balanced and stable through any post-launch changes, and if there's perhaps any money that you can set aside to allocate towards esports marketing. And also do keep in mind that many titles that are pretty flippin' huge in the esports world today seemingly didn't really set out to do so. As previously mentioned, we're definitely seeing all types of games picked up and run with by esports communities, whether developers are supporting them or not. So for more context, Fortnite is a title that's wildly popular, which people love to play. They love to play it competitively, but nothing about that game is traditionally what the esports community would define as a stable, supported esports title. But in my opinion, much like any traditional sport, what a game truly needs to succeed as an esport is simply both players and an audience. So if you're developing any game with esports in mind, not only does it have to be fun to play, but it has to be fun to watch. So why should we all care? Looking a bit deeper at how many esports fans there are in the world. The League of Legends Worlds last year, they had just under 100 million unique viewers. Last year's Super Bowl viewership clocked in at just over 103 million, and analysts are predicting that this audience is going to grow to more than 454 million in 2019. So these stats are of course huge, but this is important to us here in New Zealand because esports is hugely global. So there's less allegiance based on physical location, which means fans can and do come from all over the globe. So, a little closer to home. So GEMBA's our research body of choice here, and they say that over 407,000 of those fans come from New Zealand. So comparatively, for context, there's 949,000 rugby union fans out there, so we're kind of punching, it's not too bad. Gaming participation is up year on year while rugby is down, but it's not all bad news for traditional sport, don't worry. Basketball is on the up, kids are still playing outside, you can let your parents know it's all okay, don't worry. And GEMBA also records the number of people with an interest in esports each year, with almost 100,000 people increase in 2018 over 2017. So the real point here is to illustrate, I guess, the changing landscape of Kiwis' interests in esports and gaming for me. As you can see on the right, it's hugely growing in this country. So, I had to put Sanic in. Someone recently asked me what I thought New Zealand's unfair advantage was in the way that we would succeed in esports, even though we're a tiny country that's kind of far away from everything, and those do put us a little bit of a disadvantage. But really, we have numerous esports players, coaches, content creators, media, organisations in this space, and some of them are already succeeding on a global level, so it's already happening. And as a small country, we're often able to move really fast in a really short period of time. So the Oceanic region are still playing catch up, but really I think we're catching up quick, and that's a pretty big superpower of ours. And Yoda, because I love him. So because we're such a small region, we see this in other industries all the time. We do have the power to make more meaningful changes, and I think that that's a superpower of our region as well. So the main thing I want to communicate, I guess, over and over is that this industry is so young, and we have so much power to mould and shape it into something truly fantastic for New Zealand. So the main reason that I'm here today is because I want more people in esports and more people who have no idea about esports to be having discussions about esports, because that's the only way we're really going to grow this industry at the end of the day. So if you see me around at any time, I would love to talk to you about esports, or else I'm always hanging out online at these places, probably too much for my own good, so please say hi there, and thank you.